Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Randy Swaim back at it again, our Marshall Goldsmith certified executive
Woo-hoo!
coach and founder of Coaching for Relevance. Welcome back. How are you today?
I'm doing good, doing good. Always glad to be here with you, my friend, and just very appreciate you. So yeah, it's good to be here.
Same here. So for today, I know we discussed before the show, we're going to talk more leadership. Clearly, is what you do as an executive coach. Your organization, you offer a lot when it comes to business owners. You coach leaders, you coach teams, businesses, and so much more with your executive coaching. What did you want to share for us today? Bring it on.
Well, what I was going to do is bring on one example today, and I won't give any names or anything like that, but bring in one example of how one fellow instructor, where I was kind of the acting instructor and the uh, person who was leading the opportunity in a flight simulator, but this guy got really sort of goofy in a way or two, and I'll kind of mention how. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out exactly how I reacted to it
Yeah.
as a leader. And you know what? When you're talking about leading people, even in challenging times where they go into things that make you go, oh, kind of thing, you have to be very effective in how you're going to successfully lead and change it and things of that nature. So that's just what I thought I would bring out on this.
Yeah. All right. Let's go.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'll just tell you, and it was in a and
Flight
it was
simulator.
in one of our flight simulators, and a big airplane, but it was uh, 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 the what you had is you had uh, me in one being the acting instructor and stuff for this thing, and also there was a fellow instructor examiner who was just sort of giving me my normal QA every year, kind of thing, and we give each other QAs and all that kind of stuff. So he was sitting there just observing it. But the pilot that was in the left seat was one of our instructors also. But every year you got to spend some time
In the simulator.
flying the airplane for a little bit just to show your current and all that kind of stuff and all that. But the instructor person that I'm going to kind of mention was actually in the right seat, and all he was doing is sort of being the co-pilot
Mm-hmm.
about it and everything. And so that's what I thought I would just bring out. And if you want, I'll go ahead and just share that real quick. And what I'm going to do is, like I say, at the end of this, I'm going to kind of highlight a positive way where true leaders need to interact with people, even when it's challenging situations or whatever. There's subtle ways that you got to think about how you're really going to make positive things happen and everything. So I'll bring that out with this.
And are we talking about the Air Canada pilot? Are we allowed to say?
No, it's
This is
not an Air
something.
Canada
This is
pilot.
something different. Okay, but I don't
They're
know.
they're
Oh,
everybody that was all four of us in this particular sim set
yeah.
and simulator, all four of us are U.S. pilots. So
Got it. Okay, no, because it was in the news about Air Canada pilot. They arrested because he didn't do his flight training. I guess he was flying. Just it was in the news yesterday. He was flying without a license. I guess he really has a license, but he
that's
never.
not good.
That is. I'm like, so I was like, Mike, maybe they're connected. I'm like, he's not gonna say, but I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, yeah, he was after he flew thousands of miles without the necessary license. They say so. It was all over the news yesterday.
Oh
All right.
wow, I did
Yeah.
not hear that.
Google
That's
Air Canada
interesting.
pilot.
So,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They're checked twice a year. They were saying by Air Canada, but and
yeah,
he didn't keep up with his training and safety. So
yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
it's fine. But
Well, we got
okay,
yeah, all four of us pilots are U.S. pilots and stuff,
beautiful.
so that's good. So what I will do is I'll just go through this and share it real quick, but then I'm going to kind of focus on how I responded to the dysfunctional aspect that the guy on the right presented, and I'll kind of share this with you. This was a person who is totally wrapped up with just rote things and stuff, but without any real understanding in some aspects. And one of the things that you do on this particular model of airplane is if you go to try to turn your APU on, which is the thing that kind of brings air in and you can help use it to push air in and start the engines and things like that. If the fuel pump on that doesn't work, you have to it lets you go down to the left engine fuel pump and use that to start it up. But the problem with that is that air or that fuel is not cooled. It doesn't go through the cooler
Okay.
anymore. And so the manufacturer of the airplane has said very key that if you have to do that, you only want the APU running for 10 minutes because guess what? The fuel's going to heat up and it's going to auto shut down before you're ready. So it's just something to think about. And as a thing for the guy in the left seat, I kind of failed that pump, so it didn't work. I said, "What options do you have?" And he told me, "Well, I can use the left pump." I said, "Yep." And I said, "So how long are you able to do that? How long is that stuff?" And he looked at me and he said, about 10 minutes. And I said, "That is true." And I said, "That's kind of a limiting aspect of it." Well, the guy in the right seat went ballistic, and he actually turned back to me and he said, "That is not a limitation," because in the flight manual it's not actually in the limitation section, but Bombardier does bring it out that that's sort of the only amount of time you want to be able to do that
Okay.
for that reason. But he got very vindictive. And I said, "But it's not in limitations, but that doesn't mean that this number is not correct."
Okay.
And he just went ballistic. And in fact, one of the things that he did is he looked at me eye to eye and and this is amazing. He said, "I hate you."
What?
That's what he said. And
How?
now a lot of people would go in that. You know what I did?
You probably said, okay. Thank
Very
you.
no, I didn't. No, I didn't. What I did is I went like this because he was still looking at me, and you could tell he was sort of doing this because
Raging as if you're going to fight
he
him.
was
Like,
just because he's not in control. He wasn't in control, and
ah,
he was ticked off with that. But but he after saying that stuff, he was looking at me, and here's what I did in a very calm way. I let my body and my head go forward about 3 to 6 inches,
okay.
and I took my finger and my arm and I pointed straight to the front of the cockpit. And I looked at him eye to eye and very calmly I said, "Turn your face back to the front of the cockpit." And then I said, "And do your job." And I
Beautifully
went
handled.
back and he turned and looked back up there. He didn't say anything else and everything. But it was very amazing how I did that. And the way that he responded and interacted with that. And what's amazing is that when we were done with this, and by the way, this is somebody who has generally gotten along with me fairly
Wow.
okay for a long time and everything. But once we got up into the a debriefing room, kind of just sort of talking about stuff and everything, he just kind of was going to get the flight manual out and he was going to just sit there and tell me it's not in the limitation section. I said, "I know that, but that's not the point." He said, "What?" I said, "The point is that the operator, the manufacturer, brings that point out in the training to understand that's the maximum amount of time that you really want for that. It's not a limitation by the flight manual, but it's something that you got to consider if you have to do that." And he didn't say anything else. He just put the book away and stuff. But it's kind of amazing that when you're talking about leading people in sort of maybe a challenging situation or a situation that has aspects to it that you didn't realize or whatever, how are you going to do that? And I will tell you this, that when I responded the way I did in a very calm way, holding my finger and the arm to the, pointing to the front of the cockpit and everything, as I was responding very calmly, even to his dysfunctional reaction and everything. The other two people were very appreciative in what I did and very calm and didn't say a word. And so it's just something to think about, that when you're talking about leading your team, many people in today's world have the tendency that if somebody does that, I'm going to take them down, or I'm going to point my finger at them and I'm going to threaten them and say, you're going to get fired if you don't, stop that, and all this kind of stuff. And if that's your whole reaction, you're not getting it done. True leaders be able to interact in a way that is potentially team building. When other people see the way you react, a lot of things can happen, because guess what? If he goes up and tries to talk to somebody outside of that,
Mm-hmm.
and they say, no, Randy did well, and stuff like that, and all that. And it's just something to think about. There are some people that have dysfunctional interactions in how they do that and how they want to do that. And as a leader, particularly when you're dealing in a unpredictable, rapidly changing environment, which is organizational maneuverability aligned, kind of thing. Guess what? The emotions can get there. The reactions can get there. The sudden, rote, superficial
Yeah.
things can get there, which may not be applicable for that situation at the time. And it's, you got to understand that when you're talking about being a leader and you're trying to be a successful leader in
Yeah.
the midst of those kind of situations that happen, the rest of your team actually look at you and go, wow, cool.
Like
Yeah.
respect you, look up to you. This guy's good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you know what? Or even the
Or.
person that interacted with you,
Mm-hmm.
might come up and be better later and stuff. And that can be good and stuff, because they experience something slightly different. But there's a lot of people that just have rote little academic things, um, and they miss the boat if they're just focused on the superficial little things without any clear understanding of the real situation
Yeah.
and what happens there and everything. And so it's just something to think about. And this guy, this guy and I were actually, even a day or two after that, when he saw me, um, kind of, he waved at me and stuff like that and everything, So I mean, it it just, not saying that he hated me or anything like that, no, but he just, it was a situation that really caught him to the side, which is not what he needed, but it's just something to think about. When you're looking at your people, to what extent do you see your people sometimes reacting incorrectly?
Yeah.
And if that happens as a leader, how are you going to truly interact with them in such a way that you can kind of address that and fix that? And you know what? If you can come in and interact in a way where they don't feel like you're just throwing them aside or whatever, um, something. Now, if it's somebody who's being militant and all of that kind of stuff and not, not all that, guess what? You may have to do that, and you may have to let them go because they're just not part of the team. But if it's somebody that, is maybe, part of the team, but misidentifying one aspect of it or whatever, guess what? You can work with them. And as a leader, like I said, I think that the other two people that were in that simulator were very appreciative of kind of how I interacted with it, because I didn't hate him, I didn't argue, I didn't play games. All I said is, turn your face back to the front of the cockpit, do your job. That's all
Amazing.
I said. And he did exactly that. He put it all aside. He got the checklist back up and then went through the rest of the simulator session and everything, kind of thing. So, but there are sometimes people that misidentify just one thing. They say, well, this is not in that. Well, that's true, but does that mean this is not important?
Yeah.
It can be. And like
Yeah.
I said, in this particular case, the manufacturer had brought this out to people in developing people to be, experts in the airplane and stuff, that you don't want to kind of put that on and then at 11 or 12 minutes it shuts down and you can't start your engines anymore, maybe. And so it's just an aspect about it that in that case, if you had to do that particular thing, you would have to basically wait generally until you're within about 10 minutes of starting the first engine. Then you can start it.
Okay.
Start the first engine, and if it shuts down after that, you can cross bleed the engine and start the other engine, kind of thing. But the bottom line is having some awareness of that. And what happens is if people don't have that clarity of awareness in
Mm-hmm.
certain aspects of your situation that your team is trying to work in, guess what? You may have to help them get a sense of that, and you may have to uh, help them experience that and see that. Because if all people are doing is just going into rote academic superficial things, oh well, in the book here it says this, but it doesn't say this. Well, does that mean you can't do that? No, kind of thing. And so, uh, having an understanding when you're working with your team and doing certain things, it's one thing to be able to bring all of that out, but it's another thing that when you see somebody that does something dysfunctional like that,
Yeah.
how are you going to
Wow.
really respond? If you're going to try to attack them and control them and take them down, you know
Doesn't
what?
sound like a good leader to me. I wouldn't want to be. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, and the way I did it was very calm,
Yeah.
and I just said, I said, you know, turn your and what I said word for word was turn your face back to the front of the cockpit. And as he did this and he started to go back like this, I said, "Now do your job."
Yeah.
And that's it. And so if you think about it, when you're talking about leading your team, particularly when challenging situations come up or arise or something of that nature, um, to what way are you truly getting involved with it correctly as a good leader and having the good impact in your team? Or in what ways are you trying to play control freak games and
Mm-hmm.
overdoing things and
When.
causing them dysfunctions?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that if you do it in such a way where you're bringing the dysfunctions and all of that kind of stuff, as it goes forward, the people experience
Okay.
different things.
Mm-hmm.
And not only are they going to experience bad things, but they're going to experience now, regardless of the extent of which you may or may not have been an initiator in that. But you know what? They may be experiencing that you are helping that happen.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, geez, why am I here? Or whatever, kind of thing. But the bottom line is, like I said, I was very calm after he said that. I was very calm. Like I said, all I did, I leaned forward a little bit like this, and I pointed my finger forward, and all I said was, "Turn your face back to the front of the cockpit." And as soon as he did that, I said, "Now do your job."
Wow.
And I didn't say anything else about it. And like I said, once we got in the debrief room, he was going to bring out
The
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 pamphlet.
the
What do you call it?
the yeah, it was
Book.
basically the yeah, it was the
Manual. What do I call it?
manual,
Manual.
the
Manuscript.
aircraft, yeah, that's right,
Aircraft.
the aircraft manual for it,
Oh,
which is the definer of it and stuff. But he was going to try to show, well, that's not in the limitations. I said I didn't say it was in limitations. What I said is, and this is what I told him, I said, and what Bombardier has, and Bombardier was the manufacturer of the airplane, and I said, what Bombardier has said correctly so, that if you try to use that exact way of powering your APU for more than 10 minutes, the fuel is probably going to overheat and it's probably going to shut down on its own.
mm-hmm.
And I said, so it's not a limitation, but the pilot, that if they choose to do that, they need to kind of sort of apply it sort of as a limitation in their
Yeah.
thinking. And that's a little bit different. And he shut up for the rest of the stuff and everything. But it's some aspects of it that sometimes people don't think about. And as a leader, like I said, even if you have some people that kind of come in with sort of challenging situations that make
Mm-hmm.
you go, "Ooh, I want to take him out," kind of thing, like this kind of stuff. I want to have a conversation with him after the, that kind of stuff. You know what? Yeah, if that's all you're thinking about, you're not getting the job done. Because the way I did it calmed everything. We were able to go through the entire rest of the simulator session and complete it and all of that kind of stuff. And I actually had the same kind of interaction when we got up into the debrief room, and he tried to bring that out as not as an angry thing, but just he's trying to kind of call himself as the only one that knows. And you know what? We all know that, but that's not related to what we're talking about. And I said, because Bombardier has trained this
Mm-hmm.
and told people this. And, people that are in there know. And part of it was because the pilot that was in the left seat, when I told him, how long can that be running? He said about 10 minutes. And I went, yep, you got it right.
Yeah.
Because people are aware of what was, um, you know, um, brought out, even though it wasn't just directly said in the flight manual and everything. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's just something to think about. But you know what? As a leader, and I leave that for people that are maybe listening to it, as a leader, how are you really connecting with your team or with people that have those challenges that come up? In what way are you really being a leader and not a dictatorial control freak, not just a whatever. But think about if those situations ever rise, how you're going to truly be a leader and bring your questions, bring the aspect of it in to really bring out positive solutions and
Yeah.
stuff. And so that's just what I was going to bring this time. Like I said, it just has this aspect of being a leader. And what I did is I brought a leadership thing. I didn't attack anybody. I didn't attack him. I didn't go crazy. I didn't accept what he said,
Mm-hmm.
but I helped him, start it. And we got a little bit. He got a little bit of a chance of sort of experiencing it a little bit different. And so just something to think about. And like I said, that's what I was going to just bring out today in challenging situations for people that are leaders. How
Well,
do you need to kind of interact differently when you need to
and
in each
have you
situation?
interacted with him again? Just
Yeah,
curious.
yeah,
And
yeah.
things are
He's
fine and
yeah,
better now. There hasn't been since that moment. And didn't think anything changed for him.
nothing negative. And I will say this: that one of the things that I found out that he's doing, and he told me, is that they're actually moving him over to another program for another airplane and stuff. He's still gonna. My understanding is he's still gonna be kind of helping out here, but it's not anything big. It's not anything that promotes him per se, but just lets him kind of do some of that. So, but he'll still be here. And like I said, the times where we, uh, you know, uh, pass and stuff, he usually says hello and stuff like that. And he's done that before. And I think part of that reaction from him, in part, is because of the way I reacted. And
Yeah.
kind of because you know what, if you react in such a way where he really considers that you're a leader, but also, you know what, we're connected, we're friends, we can be friends and all that, that can be huge.
Oh
And it's just something to think about when you're talking with challenging situations, when you have to deal with somebody that was thinking really sort of incorrectly at the moment.
wow. Beautifully said. Well, thank you for sharing all that today, Randy. And wow, great. Always leadership stories. How did you want to end off for today?
Well, I'll just say that, that just, people, get a sense of situations where you have been involved in, and what are some of the situations where you have just, um, you know, uh, tried to play control freak games without really being a leader and stuff like that. And just now, if you got somebody who's being an enemy of what your team is trying to do, yeah, you got
Okay.
to kind of step forward. But that's not. But having the clarity on the difference between those two is key. But so yeah, just something to think about when you're talking about situations that are not always road academic, and they're sometimes a little bit unpredictable and changing a little bit. And so do that. And if anybody wants to, as you always like me to do it, if anybody wants to just have a chat with me or something like that, they can go to my website, the homepage, and at the bottom of it, it has my email and my cell phone on it. So if somebody would like to give a call, I won't give you any sales pitches or anything unless you decide you want some coaching. And in that case, we'll come up with something. So just something to think about.
Great. Thank you so much, Randy. Always a pleasure having you here. And don't forget your book, movie. Plug it, please.
You betcha. And I kind of about every week or so, I attach it on the social media and stuff and all that. But yeah, the Hollywood movie documentary, if somebody goes to my website and goes to that homepage, as you kind of roll down the homepage, you come to kind of a big square thing, and it talks about the Hollywood movie. If you click on it, there's a little thing in here that says purchase or rent. And so you can purchase the movie from there. If you click on that, it'll take you to where you can do it. Or if you go down to the next little square that's on the homepage, it's got my autobiography there. And if you click on that, there's a little thing that comes up with purchase or rent, kind of thing. And well, excuse me, you got to purchase it, but you can purchase it either by getting the book, which is what I recommend, or another way where you can just kind of get it digital sent to you, kind of thing. So that just gives you some options on that. But yeah, on the homepage of my website and everything, coachingforrelevance.com, that's where you can see that, and that's probably the quickest way to get to them.
All right, Randy, thank you. Always a pleasure speaking. Don't forget, Google that story for me for Air Canada pilot. Read it. We'll talk about it next week. See what happened. I'm just curious because you know the ins and outs of training and being certified, but something happened with the Air Canada pilot yesterday. Google, okay?
If I can find out, I'll see what I can find out. But yeah, right. Cool, because I hadn't heard about it until you just did. So
yeah, well, I love you. Bring the leadership. I bring the news. We got it all, sweetie. You have a great day. We'll talk later, hun. Bye bye.
Okay, my pleasure. I appreciate you.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.